Here is what food snobs refuse to admit about pizza. Italy might have invented the dish, but America is the country that took it, transformed it, and built an absolute empire out of it. Most people think pizza is just bread, cheese, and sauce. But if you look closely at how we eat it here, it is not just food anymore. It is a massive coast-to-coast battle for the soul of American culture. We do not just eat pizza, we argue about it. We defend our city style like we are defending our own family name. And over the last century, 3 major cities completely ripped up the rulebook and reinvented this dish from scratch. New York, Chicago, and Detroit did not just change the recipe, they started a pizza war that changed how America eats forever. And the story of how they did it is one of the greatest examples of American creativity you will ever hear. To really understand this, you have to go back to the beginning. When Italian immigrants came through Ellis Island in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they brought their food with them. Back in Naples, pizza was a simple, cheap street food. It was meant to keep poor workers fed. It was a blank canvas. But when those immigrants set up shop in America, things changed. The ingredients they had back home weren't available here. The water was different, the flour was different, the tomatoes were different, so they had to adapt. And that's exactly what Americans do best. We take what we have, we figure it out, and we make it bigger, faster, and better. Let's start with New York City. This is the undisputed heavyweight of street food. In 1905, a man named Gennaro Lombardi opened the first licensed pizzeria in the United States, right in Manhattan. He didn't have the traditional wood-fired ovens from Italy. He had coal ovens because coal was what powered the American industrial machine at the time. Those coal ovens burned insanely hot, so Lombardi and the guys who worked for him had to stretch the dough wide and thin so it would cook perfectly in just a few minutes. That's how the New York slice was born. But the shape of the pizza was not an accident, it was an absolute necessity. Think about New York City. It's loud, it's fast, nobody has time to stop. People were building skyscrapers, digging subway tunnels, and rushing to factories. They didn't have the luxury of sitting down at a nice table with a knife and a fork. They needed cheap calories that they could eat while running down the sidewalk. The New York slice is an engineering marvel. It's massive, but it's thin. You grab it, you fold it directly down the middle, and you eat it on the move. That fold is crucial. It acts like a structural beam holding all that hot grease, melted mozzarella, and sweet tomato sauce right in the center so it doesn't end up on your shoes. When you eat a New York slice, you are eating the speed and the hustle of the greatest city on earth. It's pure efficiency. Just dough, sauce, cheese, and maybe some pepperoni, served on a flimsy paper plate. It fueled generations of workers. But as famous as New York pizza became, another American city was watching, and they decided that thin and floppy was just not going to cut it. Enter Chicago. If New York pizza is a quick snack for a busy worker, Chicago pizza is a sit-down feast for a champion. You have to picture the 1940s in the Midwest. World War II is wrapping up. Soldiers are coming home. The economy is booming. People don't want a light, thin piece of bread. They want a massive, heavy, protein-packed meal. They want a reward. In 1943, 2 guys named Ike Sewell and Rick Riccardi opened Pizzeria Uno. They completely threw the Italian rulebook out the window. They decided to make a pizza that looked and felt like a savory pie. They took a deep, round pan and pushed the dough all the way up the high sides. But they had a problem. Because this pizza was so incredibly thick, it had to stay in the oven for a very long time to bake all the way through. If they put the cheese on top like a normal pizza, it would burn to a crisp before the dough is even cooked. So, what did they do? They flipped the whole thing upside down. That's American problem solving right there. They put slices of mozzarella cheese directly on the bottom, right over the dough. Then they packed in huge layers of Italian sausage, pepperoni, and onions. Finally, they covered the entire top with a thick, chunky, crushed tomato sauce to protect the cheese from the intense heat of the oven.
When you cut into a Chicago deep dish, it is an event. You need a knife and a fork. You pull out a slice and the cheese stretches for miles. The crust is not just regular pizza dough. It is rich, buttery, and flaky, almost like a biscuit or a pastry. It has cornmeal in it for extra crunch. Chicago is the city of big shoulders. It is a city that deals with brutal, freezing winters. A thin slice of pizza is not going to keep you warm when the wind is blowing off Lake Michigan. You need heavy-duty food for a heavy-duty city. Deep dish is bold, it is aggressive, and it makes absolutely zero apologies for what it is. New Yorkers love to make fun of it. They call it a casserole. They say it's not real pizza. But the people of Chicago do not care. They know they created a culinary masterpiece that demands respect. But while New York and Chicago were screaming at each other over who had the best pizza, a third city was quietly building a masterpiece of its own, and they were doing it right inside their factories. Welcome to Detroit. Detroit is the Motor City. It is the place that put the world on wheels. In the 1940s, the whole city was dominated by the auto industry, and the pizza that came out of Detroit is a direct result of the American assembly line. In 1946, a guy named Gus Guerra owned a neighborhood bar called Buddy's Rendezvous. He wanted to add pizza to the menu, but he didn't have the traditional round pizza pans. What he did have were his regular customers, many of whom worked in the local auto plants. Legend says that Gus got his hands on some heavy, rectangular blue steel pans. These were not cooking pans. These were industrial trays used in the factories to hold small metal parts and catch oil drips. Gus cleaned those blue steel pans out, oiled them up, and pressed his dough right into them. That single decision created the most underrated, incredible style of pizza in the country. Detroit-style pizza is shaped like a rectangle. The dough is thick and airy, almost like a sponge. But because it is baked in those heavy steel pans, the bottom gets incredibly crispy. It practically fries in its own oil while it bakes. But the real magic of Detroit pizza is the cheese. They don't use standard mozzarella. They use Wisconsin brick cheese. It's a very fatty, buttery cheese. And they don't just put it in the middle. They spread that cheese all the way to the absolute edge of the pan. When that pizza goes into the oven, the cheese melts and slides down the sides, touching the super hot blue steel. It burns and caramelizes into a dark, crispy, crunchy border all the way around the pizza. That crispy edge is called the frico, and if you've never had it, it will change your life. Detroit pizza is finished off with 2 thick racing stripes of red sauce poured right over the top after it comes out of the oven. It looks different. It tastes different. It's a blue-collar, hard-working pizza that literally used the tools of American industry to come into existence. You cannot get more patriotic than that. For decades, Detroit pizza was a local secret. Only the people in Michigan really knew about it. But in the last few years, it's exploded across the country. People are finally waking up and realizing that Detroit might actually have the best pizza of them all. So, you have the big three: the fast, foldable New York slice, the massive, towering Chicago deep dish, the crispy, industrial Detroit square. This pizza war is not just a food debate. It is a perfect picture of who we are as a country. America is massive. We don't all act the same, we don't all talk the same, and we sure don't eat the same. We take immense pride in where we are from. When a New Yorker defends their slice, they are defending their city's unmatched energy. When a Chicagoan defends deep dish, they are defending their city's toughness and grit. When someone from Detroit defends their square pie, they are defending their city's working-class roots and history of building things that last. Italy might have planted the seed, but America grew the forest. We took a simple peasant dish and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar national obsession. We put it in every town, on every college campus, and in every home in the country. We made it the food of victory parties, late-night study sessions, Friday nights with the family, and Super Bowl Sundays. We didn't ruin pizza, we elevated it. We proved that when you bring an idea to the United States, we are going to push it to its absolute limits. We are going to experiment, we are going to argue about it, and we are going to make it iconic. The pizza war doesn't have one winner. The real winner is anyone lucky enough to live in a country where all three of these amazing creations exist at the same time. Subscribe to the channel for more videos.